Well, on today's Wednesday Walkabout, we're going to do something a little bit different. I want you to see the different areas of my garden through my eyes and how I tackle each zone. I think that'll be a little bit better of a takeaway for you if you sometimes are intimidated by how you can keep something well groomed, tended, bug-free, fungal issues free, and you can do that, but it, like I say, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I thought I'd show you how I tackle it zone by zone and also give you an update on what things look like right now. I call this sub-season purple haze, hydrangea and purple haze season. What was your reference?
Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix. So, because that's very much what it reminds me of right now. So what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Okay, first show them how beautiful my hydrangeas look as I drink my coffee, looking out my parlor windows. So as you approach the cottage, and by the way, it's not nearly so evident now as it is at different times of day. We're shooting this in the morning. In the evening, it's much more prominent, and even when the sun is higher in the sky, it's more prominent. But what you can see is what I call the purple haze. And the purple haze is all of the remaining floral purple interest on the larkspur, on the salvia, on the verbena. What else do we have going here? Oh, coming into the party is all of the butterfly candy, the veronica, and a lot of them have already bloomed at the bottom, and when they did that, they were in a block of color. But now it just looks like this kind of purple haze. If you get up here maybe in the shade, Stuart, and get down low, you can see what I mean. That there's just this kind of hovering purple haze. Again, much more prominent when the light is a little bit different.
You can see it for sure.
But this is a new sub-season that I've noticed here at the cottage, and it will get even more pronounced as more of the Verbena bonariensis comes into bloom. And also as the butterfly candy grows taller. So I'm going to record that in my garden journal because it will help me identify this sub-season within the overall early summer season and what garden chores might be related to that. So while I'm still doing some deadheading on the East Friesland salvia, and I'm still doing deadheading, obviously you can see there the larkspur is going to seed, and I'm still harvesting some of that seed and doing some deadheading. Nevertheless, that purple haze remains, and it will continue to be pronounced for many weeks as the butterfly candy continues to grow in height and puts out even more blooms. Okay, so when I'm dividing my garden up into zones to tackle them, I'll sometimes mentally say I will tackle one zone. I've alluded to this before, but I want to be a little bit more specific about it. I'll take one or two zones to tackle in a day, and it's especially important now because it's gotten so hot. So I can get out here in the cool of the morning, and in the allotted time that I have in the morning or in the evening, I can pretty much get my objectives done for that day. So there's not a lot that I need to do on Lemon Lane right now. It is, Stuart, let's see if we can do a before and after of Lemon Lane. You guys really seem to enjoy the before and afters, and actually I do too.
Yeah.
So at this point, I haven't gotten that far.
Uh-huh. And then what's nice then is if we have, go ahead and repeat that post even like here,
Yes.
so it lines up and frames those two
Yes.
little windows.
Yes, and it looks very much like it all matches.
Right.
And then I'm thinking I'm thinking in clouds,
Mhm.
cloud clumps.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking cloud clump here,
Okay.
and then I haven't thought about this side too much, other than I don't want it obviously as deep as that. It can be narrower, or it may be that this is where the frame of the boxwood begins.
Well, I was thinking that might be kind of nice to plant like a grove of trees here, so that it gives us some light, gives us some privacy without being a wall.
Right. Okay,
And it
so
also it's lacy. You're looking through the trunks of the trees to
agree.
this, but then it returns the focus more on the front door
And
this
so I've
beautiful
got-
eyebrow orange.
so I've got my big trees here.
Uh-huh.
Then I have my secondary height trees over here, like a little trio.
Oh, I'm thinking like 8 or 9, like trees.
Oh, 8 or 9?
Yeah, and like cedar ants that are like a little boss. Yeah,
I just don't see how 8 or 9 of them would fit.
Oh, they'll work, and then they just grow up, become a grove, and they just kind of grow away from each other as they mature.
As they mature.
Yeah,
Well, as long as I was thinking 3 to 5,
Uh-huh.
but as long as I can keep them pruned up, because I don't want over time to lose my fabulous light in there. I want it to.
Oh yeah. You
Yeah.
want I would see at a minimum keeping them limbed up above the
Yeah.
top of the windows, and as they grow, keep them
Keep them
even
limbed up,
taller.
yeah, even
So you
taller.
really are looking at the house through these tree
How
trunks.
mature did they get?
Well, they get huge, but I think it'd still be cool. I mean, I think that
Well,
even if it gets big.
Okay, I might equivocate with you on the number,
Uh-huh.
but I
Yeah.
love the idea of having that.
It almost would look like they had been here.
Okay.
We do different sizes.
Okay.
Do some smaller ones and some bigger ones.
Okay. But I like that kind of visual way over here.
Yeah, right.
Because I forget how much stuff has grown. I
Well, you've noticed every time I go look for before and after photos, I send you about 30 other photos I come across. that are
come
fun.
across because they're just
So that's
they're
why I
just
enjoy
fun.
it.
One thing that maybe I wish I had done, and maybe I'll do it later this fall, one regret I have, is maybe not planting a little bit more lemon abelia down this way, because its flounciness, it's in flower right now, and from a design perspective, I would like some of its visual interest down this way. But then when I really dissect this area, I realize, well, the reason there's not more is because there was a huge euphorbia here, and this area in here has pots. I could maybe squeeze in a couple more gallons, and I might do that in the fall just to make it a little bit more consistent in its density all the way to the end. I did add a couple of little Goldie Hollies down here, which are green right now till they start getting more sun, but I still like the way they look because they kind of look like boxwood, and they're happy. And then I can't believe how much larger the Encore azaleas have
whoa.
gotten. Yeah,
I
they
haven't looked over there in a
they
while.
have really gotten a
smokes.
lot larger. So what am I looking for in this area? Number one, I'm noticing that it's almost time to pull out the larkspur. This right here is some double larkspur. This flower is double compared to, well, let's just do a side by side. This single larkspur, can you see the difference?
Is it color or
It just is deeper
Oh,
in
it's-
color and double in
Yeah.
petal.
density? Yeah.
Okay, so I am really saving this seed. This is my special seed. I want more of this. But pretty soon, once the seed dries, I'll save it. And then I'm going to rip out all of the larkspur because it's starting to yellow at the base and it's just simply getting too hot. But right now it's contributing to this purple haze subseason, so I'll leave it be for a while. Another thing that I'm doing consistently, and by the way, if you like scabiosa, then it is just a really great plant that handles clay soil, that likes the heat, and it too is contributing to the purple haze, because I love plants This is a characteristic I like, and I realized it when I was ascribing words to my garden. Stuart, turn very so slowly and look at the bird that just lighted on the finial.
Oh, whoa. He looks like he's a part of it.
Is it a robin?
It's a, yeah, orange chest.
Yes.
And that's the female robin?
And, yes, and right now I'm looking at it through the Verbena bonariensis. I just love those little camera moments. So, the other thing contributing to the purple haze subseason is all of the Nepeta, the catmint that I've got regularly spaced all over the area. So, what I'm doing is I'm just consistently, every morning I come out and I will deadhead that because I want,
catnip, right?
Yeah, that's the catmint.
Catmint
Or Nepeta, because I want the flowers to keep on coming. And one thing I am doing right now, I showed you the other day, is I'm feeding pretty heavily with an organic liquid fertilizer, because a lot of these things, if you'll kind of focus in here, Stuart, on the gorgeous white wedding hydrangeas, you can see some of them have yellowing leaves. And that's because we got too much rain in too short a period of time. So they've gone from one excess to another. So too much rain, and now we're going into a period where we will get too little rain. But they look like they could use some iron and maybe a little bit of fertilizer. And this also is another subseason, I guess, and that's definitely hydrangea season. Right now, the white weddings look glorious. I added one, as you may recall, down near closer to the street. And so I have this wonderful drift that we were looking at from inside because it lines up perfectly with the windows in the parlor. And you guys, so many of you are so sweet to think about the birds, and I've been much better about filling my bird bath, but boy, I have to do it a lot more frequently now that it's gotten hot, because it will evaporate or blow away very, very quickly. So thank you for those of you who reminded me that I need to put more water in my bird bath. I've got a void right here along these stepping stones. And while I don't need to add much more up in here, and some of these things earlier were filled with foxglove, were filled with salvia, were filled with more larkspur, there is an element that I want to add, and I'll show you what that element is when we get to the other side. But it will absolutely emphasize and harmonize with the beautiful white and lemony yellow, kind of limey green color that we get from the lemon lime color of the white wedding hydrangeas. And this is really only, we installed them last year, so this is their first true year, and they're absolutely stunning.
Look at these
So,
guys.
absolutely. I'm continuing to deadhead up in here. We're starting to have to deadhead. These are just now coming into beautiful bloom, and that's this butterfly candy. I think this is little lavender, but it's really beautiful, and it too contributes to the purple haze subseason of my garden. And I think some of you said, oh, why do you name things? Why do you name things the social patio, or why do you name things Lemon Lane? It's because it helps me have a construct for how I'm going to be doing my garden chores and spaces. So if I say, Stuart,
It helps us communicate.
and it
That's
helps
all
us
you said.
communicate. If I say, Stuart, let's do this on the social patio, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. If I just said, let's do it on the porch, or let's do it on the
There's a
patio,
couple porches
he won't really know what I'm talking about. Plus, it's just a fun thing to do. So there's a takeout for you. Start coming up with whimsical, fun names for areas in your garden. Okay, so I'm going to finish deadheading my scabiosa. It can handle the heat, it can handle the clay soil to a certain extent. Once it gets established, it can handle drought, and I if it looks pretty now, it will really, really look beautiful next year when it gets even more established and the clumps get a little bit larger. Okay, let's take a moment and then we'll move on to another area. Okay, this is a chore that I really was tardy on tending to, and I have paid for it. And that is checking these gorgeous It's a Breeze roses for Japanese beetles. And they have done some damage. And for a while, I thought it was just the petals beginning to brown and decay from all of the rain. But then I looked more closely, and look here. Here was the culprit, a Japanese beetle that just flew away. I should have caught it. I should have been quicker on my reflexes, but at least you got to see it. And so what I'm doing is I'm manually removing a lot of them and deadheading this in the process. And by the way, what I love about these It's a Breeze roses is I get repeat bloom. So they bloomed beautifully earlier in late spring, and they just keep, look at all these buds they just keep putting out. Now, the disadvantage to them kind of blooming this time of year is the blooms are much more short-lived because either the heat and the wind or because of the aforementioned Japanese beetles. So every morning now I'm coming out and I'm checking on those. I'm doing some deadheading because I want it to look fresh. And then when I see the Japanese beetles, if I can capture them quickly enough, I will squish them, put them in a bottle of, or into a bowl of soapy water, but I am also treating the roses with some neem oil. And I've been doing this pretty regularly, almost every other day. And I'm trying to be pretty targeted about it because I don't want to get any other beneficials. But I have found that if I stay on it consistently, if I look for those pests every day.
Will the neem oil hurt anything else?
It potentially,
Like
it potentially could. It's not going to hurt the butterflies.
Okay.
But I just think no matter what you're using, even if it's an organic, biologic, insecticidal control, you still want to be careful with it. You still just don't want to go overboard. So this is what I've been spending my time doing. I come out and I do some in the morning, and typically I do some in the evening because during the course of a hot day, a lot of these roses will expire. And not only do I like a pretty well-tailored garden, I like one that, to the extent possible in our Oklahoma summers, can look fresh. And this is not unpleasant work. It is really nice, especially on a beautiful morning like today or in the evening. So I'll come back and finish this up later. Now, Stuart, if you want to come in closely, I'll show you where I am making the cuts, just so people will know. This, like I say, this is a shrub rose. I don't have to be that exacting, but in general, I am cutting just above a segment of leaf. Pretty soon, I'm going to be clipping not only to deadhead, but also to reduce its size, because look at how large this is compared to the one on the other side. So that is another chore that I'm doing on this section of the upper terrace. Now, another thing that I've showed you before, but that continues to be part of my daily rounds, and that's not only deadheading the scabiosa, deadheading the window box, deadheading the larkspur, but it's also deadheading the pentas. And pentas are one of the few flowers like scabiosa that I would say if you get out there in the early morning or the cool of the evening, dig a really big hole and take care of them once they're planted, that you can continue to plant after the heat of summer sets in. So I'm doing that all along this edge, noticing a couple of things. So the golden feverfew, which I really like best when it's in this stage right here, and slightly larger, it looks like a little lemon yellow fern. And I love that. It just looks pretty and flouncy and is especially pretty in early spring. But ultimately it does this. And the flowers are nice, but I don't like them nearly as much as the foliage. And you'll notice that as they grow, the foliage starts looking a little buggy and a little tattered. So on this one, I'm going to definitely save some of the bunches, maybe along Lemon Lane, because I want some of the seed to dry and to save some of the seed. Right now, this is kind of contributing to that hovering color that you can see from a distance. So I'll leave some of it, but this one here, you can tell it's gotten too much water, and I'm going to cut it back. In fact, I'm going to cut it back all of the way. It may or may not come out again with fresh foliage from these cuts that I make.
I think I just heard half the audience go, no.
No! Well, and I can see, I can empathize with that.
It's cool that they have opinions, yeah.
But I also like that this is going to give this better boxwood here, I believe it's a heritage, give this better boxwood here a little bit more room to grow, and there is new growth on here. Some of the foliage on it before, see there's still some new growth. It may or may not come out. If it doesn't come out, I'll pull that whole thing out. But a lot of the foliage was starting to look less than its best because it had gotten too much water, and it was kind of, let's just say, it was not happy. So I'm going to cut that back. I'm going to examine other things. Here's a happy surprise. Whatever this salad green was that went to seed here, I did not plant it. I may have inadvertently dropped some lettuce seed, but it has gone to flower, and I love the way it looks. I love the way it contributes to the hovering color that I've got that just comes up above and hovers like the butterflies just above the other foundation plants in the garden. So I'm going to leave this here and enjoy its presence. I'm thinking back in here, and these are notes that I'll make in my garden journal afterwards. I'm thinking back in here, maybe this is where I want to scatter more seeds of larkspur, maybe plant another pincushion flower because I've got a void right here. So I'm not only doing tasks, but I'm making design notations in my head and in my garden journal. And look over here, some of, unlike my seeding trough where I very intentionally scattered a bunch of foxglove seeds to produce seedlings, look here, I didn't scatter any in here, but from a nearby foxglove that had gone to seed and dropped some of its seed, look, it germinated here in the base of the plant and at the base, and in a pot itself, and raised above the surface where it's not so likely to be devoured by sow bugs or other kind of predators. I'll just leave that there to grow on, and this fall, when the seedlings are big enough, I'll transplant them out someplace else.
Life finds a way.
Okay, Stuart and I were just saying, and here's another takeaway tip for you. This is a really beautiful angle that unless you stood on my neighbor's side of my brick wall, you would not be able to capture. Some of you were asking me the other day about the tree that we trimmed, and wasn't that on my neighbor's property? And I said, yes, it was. But neighbors can talk to one another. And neighbors can consult with one another on what they need to do about a tree that is a potential hazard for both their roof and mine. So yes, it was on their property, but yes, we are good friends, and I was able to work that out with them. Okay, here's another garden takeaway. So back to from the angle. So this is what we call a money shot. This is a really beautiful angle right here. The light is good. You can capture a lot of the garden. That includes both the topiary, the tightly clipped topiary, but a lot of the floral stuff in abundance, and hides some of the things we don't like to see. And so we need to remember this money shot. You guys in your garden journal record your own money shots. And how do you identify them? Well, you just take your phone with its camera and you just walk around and just look, not only from standing level, but also crotch down, and see what a difference that makes if you go lower, and what you can capture that you can't capture when you are up higher. Okay, so another takeaway right here, I've talked to you guys about the seeding troughs. These work beautifully, and look at how much these foxglove seedlings are growing. And they will put on even more growth now that we are getting lots of sun and not too much rain. So I just keep these covered because I don't want squirrels digging into them. And then later today, here's another thing on my chore list for this zone, Lemon Lane and the Upper West Terrace, and that is I'm going to be transplanting all of this basil. So I've got I've got some purple dome basil in here, purple ball basil, and I've got some more of the boxwood basil, and I'm going to be transplanting that out. And I noticed that by removing some from the other end of the seeding trough, it then allowed more seed that was in there to be exposed to light and moisture, and it is starting to germinate. So it's kind of a twofer. So if you've been wondering what to do with some of the more beautiful pots that you have around the garden, you don't want to plant them, you don't want to necessarily have to tend or deadhead anything else, then consider using them as a seeding trough. Now, along with all of the in-bed plantings on the Upper West Side and along Lemon Lane, I also want to tend the topiaries. The topiaries are looking very, very happy. I've been giving them lots of good feeding after all of the rain, but I am noticing that they are responding to that good feeding, putting out lots of new growth along the trunk. And while that's pretty, I don't want it here. Now this is some prized stuff. This is green mountain boxwood, these clippings are. So I will probably save some of the larger clippings, and I will probably try to root them and create some more boxwood. Now some of you have told me that you have seen that there are times, and there are times, when you can just remove the lower leaves like this, okay? And then just stick it in the ground. And I can do that in the spring and maybe when we're getting reliable rains. It's pretty iffy right now, though you might be able to do that in a trough or in an area where the soil is particularly good quality. But if you've got a good cutting like this one from a green mountain boxwood, then definitely think about what you might do to grow on this cutting. And you can do it with some rooting powder. There's different ways you can do it, and we can put a link to some previous videos where we have done just that. But save these clippings, and if you've got an area that remains kind of shady and reliably moist and you don't have to really babysit them, then you too might want to consider just sticking into the ground to make more boxwood. So I'm just going to
Say it with me, y'all. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty
neat.
Just
stick it in the ground.
Just stick it in the ground.
It's gross.
Now, don't expect to work every time. And the newer the cutting, the better. If you took it off of old woody growth, it probably wouldn't work as well. But
such a cool thing.
yeah. Okay. So I will momentarily come back and get these clippings to do with it what I will, but in the meantime, it's kind of cleaned this up. Cleaned it up and given me some new plant material. Okay, now it's time for our pumpkin moment and our pumpkin update, and tragedy has struck the pumpkin patch. I was absolutely devastated when I came out yesterday to check on the progress of the little pumpkin that we had growing up here. Do you remember it?
I remember.
Okay, we might need to put a little picture of it here if we can find one. And I was devastated when I came out, and gnawing down on that baby pumpkin was a green spotted cucumber beetle. And it had chewed its chewed it halfway through, and then it promptly, the baby pumpkin promptly fell off and expired. And I was just completely devastated. But as sometimes happens, there is redemption, because I spotted another couple of pumpkins down here. I think I've got one going there.
I think I might see a couple.
Do you see it? Well, it's hard to
yeah,
tell between
the
the male
yeah.
and the female pumpkins, but there was one that was really pretty. Oh, there we go, right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there are more coming out. Now, one thing I also noticed this morning when I lifted this up is I'm having some kind of sign of, I don't know what, might be spider mite, might be something. There's lots of sow bugs that are running rampant underneath. You can see right here, look here, underneath there. You can also see where I sprinkled.
Is that the holes? Oh, is that one right there on the leaf?
Oh yeah, they were everywhere. Remember, they just returned from the ugly bug ball. And so I'm gonna spray under here with some neem oil. I probably need to put some kind of protective something down here. That's my question of the day. Since I'm not a pumpkin farmer, I know you can sometimes use dry hay or things like that. What can I put under here to protect the vines from these kind of critters that love to crawl along the surface? They're everywhere, and I don't want them eating my little pumpkins. So the ones that are a little bit higher up, and look at how the vine has just gone crazy. I am spraying it with neem oil and seeing what I do to control it. Whatever is on these leaves, I will probably come and just cut these off, because I've got leaves to spare. Okay, finally, to finish up with what I intend to plant in this bit of a void over here, I'll show that to you. The other thing is, here's some behind the scenes. We had hoped to shoot more, we had hoped to do more, but once again, we've been interrupted by lots of passersby and people that we wanted to visit with. So we're gonna just stop here and finish up with the west side and Lemon Lane and the boxwood. Those are the zones that we pretty much covered today, but I'm gonna end up showing you what I want to plant more of. And that's some of these gorgeous Shasta daisies. These are southern living plants, leucanthemum. These are Little Charmer or Little Glory. I can't remember which ones these are, but I love their lemon yellow, and boy, they are performing beautifully. They took a little while to get established, but once they have, they are handling the heat like troopers. And I love the fact that in the heat of the summer, on a hot summer day, they look so fresh. I mean, what is fresher than a daisy? So I'm going to be planting a drift of those, and I think this color will be beautiful right in front of those white wedding hydrangeas. And Stuart, right here, we might do a side-by-side of a picture of these and the picture of the white wedding hydrangeas, so you can see what a beautiful combo I think those will make. I'll continue to deadhead, but that would be working on the east side of the upper terrace, and that's a zone I'm going to save for later.